This little guy is the streamside salamander,
which was only described new to science in 1989 and only first recognized in Tennessee circa 1996 in Murfreesboro.
It's one of numerous Middle Tennessee creatures on the Tennessee or Federal Endangered Species list you may not know because they're rarely visible. David Withers, a natural heritage zoologist, is with the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, or TDEC. Conservation is vital, he says, to helping endangered animals survive and thrive. They're part of our Middle Tennessee ecosystem. Think of it like a spider web.
You pull one strand, no big deal, not a big change. You pull enough of those strands, you remove enough of those populations from the landscape, then you watch that web collapse. And that's what we're trying to avoid.
That's why TDEC and the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, or TWRA, are collaborating with the Nashville Zoo at Grassmere's Ectotherm team. The zoo team biologists are experts in cold-blooded animals like crayfish and salamanders. Because of development, streamside salamanders have been losing habitat and thus disappearing. So for the past few years, the zoo has been rescuing, housing, and working on a next step.
Last year, we had success here at the zoo at reproducing some of those animals. We were allowed to take some of those offspring eggs that we reproduced here and put them in a site that David Withers had done a lot of work to bring it back to a healthy state.
Also in need of help, hellbenders. They're a relatively unchanged salamander since the dinosaur age, with only two close relatives in the world, Japan and China.
Hellbenders are declining in their populations. We're really only finding old, large adults when we go out. We're not finding any babies, we're not finding any juveniles. So if we don't intervene, there's not going to be any younger animals coming up and they're just going to disappear.
They breathe through lateral folds of skin in between their front and back legs. No other animal does that. But when you lose that evolutionary distinctiveness, we may lose something that could really help humans in the long run to adapt or for medicine.
So we take some of the eggs, we don't take all of them, we bring them back here and we raise them for a few years until they get past whatever critical point where they're not surviving in the wild, and then we put them back in the streams that we found them to kind of give them a head start.
The zoo team's focus is also on Nashville crayfish. They're on the state and federal endangered list. Zoo staff are monitoring their health in 4 areas around Nashville.
They're the dead giveaways of good water quality. If the water that they're living in is not healthy, then what's that going to mean for us?
Since there's not a lot of captive breeding information about crayfish, the zoo is working with a close relative of the Nashville crayfish to develop a protocol to breed and care for these endangered creatures if ever needed.
A lot of the work that we do, it's not for us at the here and now, it's for the future, for humans as well as the species that we're working with.
The Ectotherm team at the Nashville Zoo are hometown heroes because they have been able to step in and work with a variety of state endangered or even federally threatened native species that often go overlooked.
They're heroes because they spend so much time and effort and they're so dedicated to learn how to keep these animals alive, thrive, and reproduce under human care.
So we honor the Nashville Zoo at Grassmere's Ectotherm team as our News 2 gives back hometown heroes for the month of June, presented by Trevecca Nazarene University, for being instrumental in the rescuing, rearing, and reintroduction of endangered animals to their native habitat, helping them to survive and thrive. If you'd like more information about the Nashville Zoo's conservation efforts, visit nashvillezoo.org/conservation.